Hi, and welcome back to Cooking with Jan. We're back to our daily routine here in Frankfurt after being in paradise for 2 months. And today, for breakfast, I thought I would do something different. Now, I have a lot of experience with English scones and also with buttermilk biscuits, which I know from America, but I wanted to try out an American version of a scone, and it's going to be a lemon blueberry scone. So, for all of you on Facebook or on WhatsApp, who thought I was making lemon blueberry pancakes. It was a good guess, but it's going to be a scone, and I'll show you how to do it. I actually got the recipe idea from Preppy Kitchen, and I will link to John Cannell's recipe for lemon blueberry scones in the comments. So without further ado, let's jump into it. We're really going to have a lot of fun here because these scones have that lemon blueberry flavor. So how do we do that? First, here I have 66 grams of sugar. So I just put it in a bowl like this. And then to get that lemon flavor, we just take the rind off a lemon. You can use a grater, or I have this hand grater, if you will. And you just simply take off the zest. Just be careful, however, that you stay on the surface and you don't go too deep because the white is bitter. So we'll take the zest, the rind from this one lemon. Okay, just mix this around and then add in your flour. This is 240 grams of flour. You add in your flour like this, and then I have here, and I want to boost my scones. So I have 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder in here and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. That goes in here as well. And then all we have to do is just mix them around. Here we have cold butter. So for biscuits, for scones, you always need very cold butter. So we're going to put in our cold butter here into our flour mix. And here you can also use a food processor to get this butter into like peas. But I'm just going to use my hands. Okay, I'm about done here. You just have to make sure that you break down each of the cube. Make sure you cut up the cubes of butter before you put them in. And you can see you have this, that's all it really is doing. Not all of them will look like peas. Don't worry about it. Don't fret because it'll all come together. The important thing is that they're just broken down a bit and that we don't overmix the batter. Okay, then we're going to combine the wet ingredients. Here I have 180 milliliters of cream. So we'll just put an egg in as well. Crack an egg in there. Make a bit of a mess. And then we'll add that to our mixture. Like so. And okay, looks pretty good. And you just with a spatula, very gently just combine. Again, you don't want to overmix here. That's the whole point. Okay, as you can see, we have a very wet batter. Mixing it gently, making sure that all the dry ingredients are absorbed so we can work with this batter, which will be sticky. It'll be sticky and wet. Put in my blueberries. Flour here. I'm going to work the dough on this here. I tend to use a little bit more flour than too little flour on sticky doughs, sticky batter, because this works. Okay, now we're going to take it out. Be very careful. We want to get it into a shape so we can cut it. What we're going to do is the idea is to work it into an 8-inch circle, which is 20 centimeters, and we'll measure that. But we're not going to work too much. So really all you have to do is just pat it down. Don't keep throwing it over because it's too sticky. I guess you could say it's kind of like a sandcastle in a certain sense. And then you want to cut it up, being careful not to cut through the blueberries to cause more liquid, which we want to avoid. I mean, if you do cut a blueberry, it's okay, but just try to be careful and just make sure you divide it into 4 pieces first, very gently, very, very gently. And if you put the flour, then it doesn't stick as much, but it still sticks, as you can see. So there's that. Then you cut it into eighths, basically. Being very, very careful. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to very gently, before it goes into the freezer, I'm going to lift them, because you've got such sticky dough that you have to really work with it. Oh, and of course, we'll put some here. Excuse me. Some here as well. You know, this is really interesting because it shows me that perhaps going with more flour was the way to go, or going with butter that was in the freezer before you put it into the dough, like you do with biscuits, for example, because then you can guarantee a more manageable dough and it's just have more substantive. But it doesn't matter because now these are going to be frozen and they look okay and they're going to taste great. They're going to go in the freezer for at least 20 minutes. My scones were in the freezer for about 25 minutes. If you can do a little bit more, even better, because now they have a good consistency. So before we put them in the oven, we're going to this is a very good tip. You take some cream and you put some cream on the top. It's a great tip just to make them look a little bit more cosmetically pleasing, because you take out the flour. And here's another great tip, also from Preppy Kitchen from John Cannell. Put a little sugar on. I'm using just raw sugar. Okay, now the scones are going to go into my oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit, 204 degrees Celsius, the convection setting. So in the oven they go for at least 25 minutes. These were in the oven for 18 minutes, 400 degrees Fahrenheit, 204 degrees Celsius, convection setting. I gave it some gas. I really used a little bit more power this time, and they were done more quickly. Now comes the taste test. I think they're cool enough. Mm. Mm-hmm. You can see they're done, and they are delicious. You don't even need any more extra butter with these because there's so much butter in them. I'm gonna put some jam on them later. They're really delicious. They're not dry at all. And today's experiment just shows that you should never give up. We really struggled with the dough. It was very sticky. It didn't want to be manipulated. It didn't want to be moved. But we found a way with flour and just sticking at it. So I want to really hammer home that point that one should always really pursue cooking or baking with a passion and just don't give up, because something's going to go wrong. And then you have to improvise and you have to try to find a way to push on through. So I hope that you really enjoyed the episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do. I would be absolutely delighted. Give me a thumbs up if you like what you saw. And until we meet again, as Jacques Pepin says, happy baking. Welcome back to Cooking with Jan. Oh. Oh, excuse me. Put in my blueberries.